Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. We are talking about selling on Whatnot today. So if you've been interested in selling on Whatnot, or you've been selling on Whatnot for a while and you have questions, or just want to learn a little bit more of some of the behind the scenes tips, tricks, and just kind of general ideas of how someone might sell successfully on Whatnot, you're in the right place. I have been on Whatnot for about a little over 2 years. I just celebrated my 2-year anniversary about a month or two ago, and it's just been a whirlwind of an experience. I absolutely love the platform and I highly recommend it to anyone who's a seller, at least to try out, add it to your repertoire and see if it's something that might work for you. I love the fact that you kind of just get to live interact with people and potential buyers. And what's great for me is I don't like listing. It is no secret that listing is by far my least favorite part of the business of being a reseller, which is why I'm not really on eBay that much. So while I do make live listings on Whatnot, they're not the traditional listing like you might find on eBay or some other platforms. It's very simple, very straightforward. Listings can take 15 seconds if you are doing it the right way. But what I love about Whatnot is the live auction platform option. Like, I love that I can literally click go live and be like, hey, this is what I have. Anyone interested in buying it? And I don't have to worry about like taking the right pictures and putting in the description and making sure I'm catering my listing to like a buyer and then publishing it and hoping that it sells while I take that item and put it onto my listed inventory shelf. I can just show books live and either they take them or they leave them. And if they don't take them that show, maybe they'll take them another show. Maybe I'll, put them on the shelf and someone will buy it later, or I'll put it into the buy it now and someone can buy it as they please at a later time. But I do genuinely just love the fact that pressing a button, going live, and being immediately connected to the world, essentially, and anyone that might be on the app. If you are one of those people who are like, I'm not someone who wants to be on camera, I don't like the idea of live selling, it's scary to me, I don't want to just be, at someone's beck and call and having to kind of, cater to someone right then and there in the moment, or I just don't feel comfortable going live, that's totally fine. There's other ways to sell on Whatnot without going live, and there's other ways to sell on Whatnot going live and not having to do a whole lot of work. People will buy from people who do no talking shows or silent shows. I actually have done silent shows in the past and they work really well. Nonetheless, stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about how I sell on Whatnot, because if you've been watching the series so far since I've been back on YouTube, I started with a little bit of a trajectory of what it looks like selling media on Whatnot. So I started with sourcing, right? I think that was the first video where I did an intro video. Then we talked about sourcing, because that's step one, right? You've got to go out and buy the product. So we talked about sourcing, and then we talked about processing, which is what happens after we buy the product. What do we do when we bring it back into the office? How do we prep it for sale? But this week we are talking about the selling portion of it, which is kind of the most important part, right? You can buy the items all you want, but if you don't ever sell them, then you're going to be sitting on a bunch of money and you're going to wonder why you have no money to run your business. So we are going to just chat about how I prep my show, how I pick the books that I'm going to sell, how I set them up, what are the things that I do before I go live, like making a preview video, putting in a thumbnail, loading up my store with things that need to be in there, cloning items over, taking updated photos of my shelves that are always pictured in the auction tab so people can always browse, things like that. And then after the show, we will do another little check-in. So you might see me post-show. I'm going to try to get some screen records for you of a live show tonight that we're going to be doing, so you can kind of see and follow along with like, what does it look like on a seller end, and how is she interacting with the chat, and what does that kind of look like? So that'll be fun. And then we will also just talk about the aftermath, because next week's video is going to be about the shipping and the customer service side of things, right? So now the items have sold, what do you do with them? You've got to ship them out, and you need to ship them out within a certain time frame, and we want to ship them out in a safe way so that they arrive to your customer the way that they were sold. Let's get into it, and I'm going to start showing you the very first step. Step one is always going to be pulling out the books that you're going to show. So as you can see, I have stacks and stacks of books everywhere. I'm never really at a shortage of inventory, which is great. It's a good problem to have. And basically what you're seeing here is me just going through the books and kind of picking and choosing a good selection of approximately 100 or so books that I'm going to show in the auction. So as you can see, this is going to be a much more chapter heavy setup for this show tonight, but the people love it. If you do sell on Whatnot, you want to learn what your people want, and my people love a good chapter book. Basically what I'm doing is I'm doing a blend. So as I'm flipping through these books, I'm looking for a good selection of romance. I'm looking for a good selection of thriller, a good selection of mystery, a good selection of fantasy or sci-fi themed, a good selection of maybe like a nonfiction or historical fiction style. So I'm trying to put a blend in, and then maybe if I have some vintage, I can throw a couple vintage in there. So I want to give people a wide range of options to choose from and not just pigeonhole them into saying, well, we're just doing a ton of thriller books tonight, and those shows can do well when you do genre themed shows or a specific theme that you're doing for the show. But mostly you really do want to have a wide variety of inventory available so that you're capturing more buyers. This step really is just the most time consuming. This is where you're sitting on the floor, you're in the nitty gritty, you are pulling through stacks and stacks of books and just picking and choosing. So once I'm getting all of this done and wrapped up, I am going to go ahead and start putting things neatly. And I like to put things in kind of in a nice little line here, as you can see against the bookshelf. So I always have my stack of my picture, workbooks, some nonfiction, cookbooks, things like that. Then I'll usually have a small selection of board books. And then I typically have anywhere from 2 to 5 stacks of chapter. And these are pretty large stacks. Each stack probably has roughly about 20 books in it, and it's going to be blended up. So each stack is going to have a variety of books. I'm not going to put all of the romance books in a stack, all the thriller in a stack, all the kids in a stack, stuff like that. I'm going to blend it out. So I want to put some pops of some solid books. We like to call them fire books or banger books, just like any bolo or category that there is out there. There are those banger items that when you get them, you know that they are just your bread, not your bread and butter, but those are the ones that are bringing in that higher value. So you pop those high value books in. Basically what you're doing with this step is you are giving your audience and your potential buyers on Whatnot a chance to discover you. So when they're scrolling through shows in the category that they like, for example, books, and they're scrolling through, they're default going to see your profile picture. So for me, it's my face. That's my profile picture. And that's great and all, but I want to show them what's going to be in the show tonight. So I have 2 options to kind of promote my show. I have the thumbnail, which is the main thing they see when they're scrolling through. And then I have a video, which is when they click on my profile, maybe to go see if I have stuff loaded in my auction or to see if I have a video. When they click on it, a video will start playing of me doing a preview. So what I typically do is very short and sweet and very simple. I do it repetitively almost every single show. It's kind of the same gist. I'm explaining to new buyers what the dealio is, and then I'm also talking to my existing buyers and my frequent buyers, like, this is something that might be a little different tonight, or this is what we're doing that's not out of the norm. I'm making a general announcement, but I'm also giving valuable information as to what to expect in my show. So I had a few bullet points, and I'm of course going to go way in depth on a lot of these topics, guys. So if I'm grazing over the surface on this selling video, please understand that so much of my content moving forward is going to be Whatnot related. So if you are interested in that, please make sure you are subscribed, because I promise you are not going to want to miss out on the content I'm bringing on the Whatnot platform, because I've been doing it for a while. I have a lot of experience. I'm very successful on the app, and I would love to share that with you and kind of help you get started, whether it's in books or whatever you might be wanting to sell. Whatnot is awesome, and I would love to be able to share the little tips and tricks that I've learned over the past couple years with you to help you get started and be successful on the app. What I'm saying basically is that, I do bundles on my show. I'm talking about my price ranges. I'm talking about how long I'm going to be on. I explain that my shelves are pictured. I explain all the little details they need to know so that they can determine, do I want to watch this show, or is this something that's not for me? When you upload a video, it's going to take the first image of your video clip and now make that your thumbnail. If it's not a desirable image, you can just take your own picture and then you can upload it yourself. So what I like to do is just take a better, more framed and aesthetically pleasing looking photo. So then once you have your thumbnail and your video uploaded, that is pretty much all I do. Now, a lot of people promote their show, they use a boost. I will talk about that in the future. I personally don't really use it. I use it once in a blue moon, or when I'm getting an ad credit for like some event, like when we did WhatNotCon. The next thing I want to kind of glaze over again, we're just touching little points here. This isn't going to be in-depth and deep. If you have specific things that are like, I need to know more about that, comment it below. Tell me the specifics. What are your questions? What are you needing more information on? Because I'm more than happy to do in-depth videos on those. Another thing that you really want to use is your show notes. Show notes are going to be listed somewhere on your screen, and they're a great way to just put in some details to how your show runs or what someone might need to know. Maybe you're doing a specialty show that night and you want to tell people, hey, tonight we're doing $1 starts, right? Every book I'm showing is $1 regardless. Or, maybe you want to talk about the giveaway system that you have that going on that evening, or an upcoming show, or a raid train you want to promote. Whatever it might be, utilize those show notes. Utilize all the aspects that Whatnot gives you to help basically inform your buyers. That is the biggest thing that you can do, is give them the information that they need to know whether or not they want to stick around in your show, or maybe they want to go check someone else out. Maybe there's someone that's better fitted for what they are looking for, whether it's the inventory, the personality, the environment, the vibe, or the selling style, whatever, right? All right, so now that most of the back end stuff is complete, it is time to actually do the show. And this is the moment when you are clicking go live and the show is starting. It is game time. And once you click that button, you got to be on. You need to start engaging, welcoming people in, talking, chatting, just taking a few minutes to welcome people as they trickle in, and just maybe have some very general conversation and banter. And then after about a minute or two, you can start kind of getting into the meat and potatoes once people are kind of in there. Hey guys, so this is what we're doing today. This is how the show's gonna run. This is what you can expect. After that, you will go ahead and get your show started. So for me, I do bundles, and I do my show a very specific way every single time, and my regulars know exactly what to expect, but new people maybe not. So as the show is starting, in that first 10 to 15, 20 minutes, depending on how long it takes for you to introduce yourself and talk about your show, I'm talking the entire time to the new people. I'm talking, joking, and chatting with my regulars, but I'm definitely targeting my words to people who have never seen me before. I want them to know what's happening. I don't want them to feel like this is confusing, or I'm lost, or this isn't my vibe. I want them to know that they're welcome here and that this is what is going on. Okay, so intro's done. We are started. The show's rocking and rolling. You can be live for 20 minutes. You can be live for 20 hours. It is your choice. I typically go live most of the days of the week for about 2 to 3 hours. And then on Saturdays, I'm usually live for at least 4 hours, usually about 5 or 6 hours. After you're done, you're selling, you're doing your thing, you're live, you're doing that whole thing, which is the main, of course, meat and potatoes, but you're in it, you're doing the best you can, you're just trying to make your sales. Then you're done, right? You end your show, you raid into somebody, you end it, whatever you do, you're done, and you can breathe, right? You get to breathe for a second. You're no longer like a clown. You're not a performer. You're not having to put on any sort of, show. You can breathe first and foremost. And then you look around and you go, oh, look at all these things I sold. And then next up is shipping. So that leads us into next week's topic, guys. I hope this was somewhat helpful for you. I know it was probably a lot of information and very broad information, not as in-depth as you may have wanted. Please let me know what topics you want to hear more about so I can talk about those. As for now, next week's video, like I said, is going to be shipping. We're going to talk about how we take now all of these orders and how I personally ship books and media. How do I use poly bags? Do I use bubble mailers? Do I use boxes? What types of boxes? Where do I get my supplies from? How much do I spend on my supplies? All those little questions that you might have about like the shipping, the back end side of it, as well as a little bit of customer service. Like, what is the other part of the back end? What is the behind the scenes you don't see on the live, right? How does customer service work? How do you communicate with people? What does customer service on Whatnot specifically even look like? Because it is different. It is very interesting. You can't always just connect to support. You kind of have to figure out a lot of things on your own, or utilize the help articles that they have. And they're great, but All right, guys, so that's it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here. I hope you learned something. I hope it left you with some questions so I can answer those in the future. And I super appreciate you guys watching this far. I know it's a little bit of a longer video, but I think that it's necessary to really help explain kind of the process of how you go from start to finish. And I didn't even cover setting up a show. I just covered the actual setting up of a show that's already scheduled. So I haven't even showed you how to like schedule a show or how to add things or list stuff. Obviously we didn't get into that. We're just talking about like the very surface level here. I will catch you guys next week when we talk all things shipping. Please consider liking the video if you've watched this far and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you guys next week. Bye.